see here. Hey, so what up, Cybernauts? Steve Lundberg here.
Max here.
Bruce here.
And tonight we are talking about one of the greatest events in the second decade of the 21st century.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
None other than the 50th Doctor Who anniversary. So those out there that are like tuning in and looking at this, you may want to go ahead and just like fast forward all this stuff because there's going to be a lot of spoilers here. Okay, so you have been forewarned. So me and Ken have seen it. Bruce here hasn't seen it. He's catching up, but he doesn't care about the spoilers. So, isn't that right, Bruce?
I'm not a spoilers guy.
See, so it's all good. So, the biggest spoiler is going to be that John Hurt's character actually revealed that that it looks like Peter Capaldi is going to be the 13th Doctor, since both David Tennant and both Matt Smith, otherwise known as Doctors 10 and 11, have forgotten this particular Doctor.
Or more like they were in denial. They were like going, we want to forget what we did. It's like, this was such a horrific thing that we had to do that, in our previous generation, that we kind of want to forget that we were that person.
Right.
So in essence, John Hurt was really the actual Doctor.
He was actually the 9th Doctor, yes, after Peter McCann's 8th Doctor.
And so that would make Tennant 10, actually 11, and Matt actually be 12.
Mind fuck.
Dun, dun, dun.
And plus, on the original limitation of Time Lords having 12 regenerations, that would make also Capaldi theoretically the last.
Right. Yes.
Doctor.
Yeah. So and what are we going to do about that?
Well, they covered in Torchwood. There's a Torchwood episode where they kind of debunked that, I believe. That the Doctor has unlimited regenerations. I could cite it for you. I'd have to find it again. But I could actually find the part of the script where they discuss the Doctor possibly having unlimited regenerations.
But how does I don't get that.
I don't either. I'm sure that they saw the success of the show and felt the need to write out the 13th limitation.
That happened in the Sarah Jane Adventures where Matt Smith's Doctor made an appearance, and he was blubbering, and they asked, one of the kids asked him how many generations he could have. He goes, "Oh, I don't know, it's unlimited or something." He was just blabbering, and that's
just blabbering.
Yeah, well, he does. How sometimes he'll do random.
True, like the drunken giraffe at Donna's wedding. And we all know about that one, huh?
It's a matter of denial or wishful thinking about his mortality.
Right.
Knowing that he's really getting really close to actually being, reaching his end.
I like the fact that Billy Piper was brought back in for this episode too.
Bad Wolf.
Billy Piper, we love you.
And you can see her maturity, over these years. After all, it's been 8 years since Rose, the first episode of
roughly, give or take a year or two.
So. But it was really nice to see her. And,
it was good, yeah.
As well as a few other faces.
And the whole Queen Elizabeth the First thing, that was a bit crazy.
Yeah, it was a little off the wall, but it was very amusing.
Yeah. I hadn't seen Zygots in like years.
Tom Baker. There's the only other time they appeared.
Yeah, and you've got to love the ending. You've got to love that ending. God bless his heart.
Yes.
Just talking about Matt's just sitting there talking about, what if I could, just kind of like, hang out and, be a curator. I could be a curator. Sure, I could. Yeah. And then then you just hear Tom Baker in the background. Yeah.
You could see Matt's Miss Glee. He's talking to Tom Baker. Like, wow.
Well, not only that, but I mean, even Tom Baker went ahead and threw out a couple of spoilers, I think, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I remember them. They were discussing that Tom Baker, he didn't feel right to be actually being the Doctor, but he was open to be a different character because he doesn't.
No.
Doctor anymore.
Yeah, exactly. He's possibly the Doctor once removed, allowed to go ahead and live out his time.
Well, we'll see how they turn that.
Yeah.
I'd leave that open for discussion for many a convention.
True. Oh man.
But there were times where I was just crying for both, just out of sheer joy, like.
Yeah.
To the show. It's like them actually finding a way to bring back Gallifrey.
Right, exactly, and I think that's what this next incarnation of the Doctor will be. The one with Peter Capaldi, I think, will be, attempting to bring back Gallifrey back to our universe from the Pocket universe. To find it.
I missed Gallifrey because they were some of my most favorite episodes where it all involved Gallifrey.
Right.
You got to know a lot more this backstory of the Doctor and what.
Well, not only that, but you also get to see a bit more of how the Gallifreyan architecture was as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like the part how they went ahead and made Gallifrey go into this pocket dimension, as they call not just one Doctor, not just 5 Doctors, but all 13 Doctors. Yeah, and the 13th one is all you see is Capelli's eyes. You just see the
in his hands. Yeah.
Yeah, and that right there was just like super cool. I was just like, wow, they went ahead and brought him in for this. Nice.
Capelli was in the Pompeii episode, I believe.
Yeah.
Right, as another character, yeah.
One of the Romans, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Capelli has been in, I think, 3 or 4 different episodes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
1 second, I gotta step away for a second. 1 second.
Oh, sure, no problem. But yeah, at least it makes you wonder what's going to go ahead and happen, with Gallifrey.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to admit that was pretty much one out of the hat, sort of like the White Rabbit.
Well. Hang on a second.
I like the Black Gallery. The Black Gallery was really cool.
The Black Gallery. Oh yeah.
Right, the one with the mind with the memory inhibitors.
Yeah. undergallery, black gallery.
Yeah, underneath the Tower of London. Yeah.
Kind of a little Men in Black moment there.
Yeah, I know, right?
Get a mind wipe you every time you leave off shit. It's just like.
Just look at this little light right here, you know. Yeah, this, no brain damage is going to occur or anything like that. No. Now the guy's just sitting there. He's been exposed to it for like 10 days at a time. Hello, Mom. How are you? Don't mind me. I'm just kind of like hanging underneath this thing.
It's like, how was work?
Work?
Gosh, I had a flu.
Wait a minute. I'm employed.
Well, no, I think he remembers, like, probably getting there, but probably that's about it, you know.
True. You know, the funny thing I saw on here, you know, with this whole Doctor Who 50th anniversary thing, was and on YouTube, it was what was it? The five-ish Doctors reboot, and I'm just like going like, cause it had like Peter Davidson, it had Doctors.
Oh, I never watched that. I saw it.
4, 5, no, 5, 6, and 7, and 8.
Pretty much.
They even had Peter McKinnon in there.
The living classic Doctors.
Oh yeah, it was hilarious. I mean, it was like them wanting to go ahead and get involved in this. We want to be involved in this. Add us in, call us, please. And Steve Moffat's like, no. Send him to my voicemail. That was hilarious. I loved that as an added as an added comical bonus.
Oh, did you watch The Adventure in Space and Time?
Oh, I saw that yesterday, and not only once but twice, and was just yeah. I forget the actor's name. He was Filch in Harry Potter. I forget the name. But he was an amazing first Doctor.
Yeah, he was great. He was very great. I think he was a perfect choice for it.
Yeah, I mean, he that was just spot on.
Yeah.
Tap that.
But
I tip my hat to him myself.
Yeah, and the girl they chose for Verity Lambert, I liked her.
Yeah, it was a good choice.
Yeah,
it's a good choice. And I think she was actually in. I think she was in Doctor Who before.
Yeah, she was the the paranormal investigator.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. And
the one where she like rescued her great granddaughter from that time experiment. Yeah.
And yeah, she was also in. She's a lead in one of her own series called A Midwife, which was a pretty good series. That takes place.
I heard about that. Yeah.
So yeah, I've actually seen her around, and she has promise for promising career.
Definitely a bright future. Yes.
But some of the background characters, the secondary characters, I kind of was on the fence on those.
So, like who, for example?
Well, they had played for Susan and Barbara and Ian and.
I don't know. I mean, those actors, portrayed the companions quite well, actually. Especially Susan. I mean, that particular actress got into her part. She actually.
Yeah, but the moment I had trouble with was when they were trying to act out the first episode, and it just I think her acting fell real flat there.
I thought it was one of those Downey moments, Downey Jr. moments. I'm an actress playing the character.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
But and I think they were primarily focusing. I think their indecision on the casting was whether or not they sounded right. Because I think Patrick Charlton, the guy they chose, was a little too skinny, in my opinion.
Really?
Patrick was
too thin?
Yeah, I think he was too thin, because I think Patrick was a little more rotund, kind of. A little more stocky person than that guy was. I mean, he has the right voice. That's why I was saying, he had the right voice for him, but he just, it just doesn't strike me as, at first glance, I wouldn't have said Patrick Charlton. They had to actually say, this is Patrick Charlton. And I was like, oh, okay. I would like kind of be able to glance at the characters. Oh, that's them without any introduction, but, But, they have a limited budget, and you can only, whoever they went to the casting, I guess, if they on a given maybe time schedule, they might have found someone better. You had the trade-off of make him look more like the part, but his voice would be totally off.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of trade-offs to go.
True enough.
They went for the voice as like the final decision, of who do they cast.
Right. But overall, I don't have anything bad I could say about Adventures in Space and Time. I mean, it was well thought out. It was, and the cast was I thought well rounded for it. Nothing bad on this end from that.
One little nitpick that I have was they give you the impression that the Daleks episode came immediately after the caveman episode.
Oh, right.
In reality, there were 4 episodes for the Unearthly Child. So it didn't exactly appear, because she said, I want to rebroadcast.
Right, do a repeat of the premiere episode.
Like back to back in the weekend, but it was like...
Well, and did you notice that was really weird too? I mean, that they would go ahead, they would plan that, involvement there, on the day that JFK actually was assassinated on.
A day after. Yeah, it's just... So Kennedy was assassinated on the 22nd.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So it was, and of course, as we know, it kind of, everyone was watching, like you were saying, everyone's going to watch the news, they're going to miss that first episode. Hence the rebroadcast of the first episode, because they knew it was not, no one's going to was going to pay attention to it the day after. They were just too focused on Kennedy's assassination.
True.
But there was
I just found it. I found it, a little bit, coincidental that that they did that. So.
That was a nitpick. I think possibly because they knew that most of us now watch these things, the stories as a one whole unit, as opposed to the original 30-minute episodes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 30 minutes for a show, like Doctor Who. It just doesn't cut it. Half hour does not cut it at all.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I would have also liked them to have spent just a tad bit of time, but I guess time constraints is what it is. Trying to get this into 2 hours was to have at least briefly at least gave the names of the audio people. Who made.
Oh, the audio engineering.
Yeah. How they created it. They show the piano strings with the keys,
Right. Right.
But was that the fact that what was her name, Derby, or she was key to helping with a lot of the sound effects. What's her name? But the fact that a woman at that time was really important. It was kind of, I think, would have been something nice to point out. That back then it was a rare thing too. In some cases, even now. But
yeah, women in audio is not a very common thing. I mean, I did audio professionally for 13 years, and coming across women in audio, whether it be in post-production or in secular music production or whatever, it's still not common.
Right. And, even in especially being a director / producer for a show as well. I mean, back then in the very early '60s,
damn near unheard of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially the part with that. We need somebody who's got that piss and vinegar type attitude.
Right.
Yeah, that piss and vinegar attitude gets shit done.
Indeed. Indeed.
But one thing I wanted to say too about some of the, like you guys were talking about reordering of episodes for broadcast and stuff like that. I feel like writers, just because I've been watching Game of Thrones, and it's kind of a parallel in the sense that I've read all the books and I see the changes they're making in the show, and I feel like George R.R. Martin is executive producing the show, or co-executive producing the show. And I feel like this is the thing. Writers can at any time just completely change things on you. And especially for television, things like reordering of broadcasts and things like that, you have to understand that those intellectual properties, they're fixing too as they go. Like, I feel like watching Game of Thrones that George R.R. Martin in the show is fixing things that he thought he did wrong in the book. And based on how like the audience reacts and things like that, I think that the writers, they'll just continue to change things. You know what I mean? That's especially with a show like Doctor Who or Game of Thrones. It's continually evolving based on how the audience reacts. I mean, rest assured, if Doctor Who keeps making money, they will not limit his regenerations. You know what I mean? They may.
True.
It's science fiction. They can write it out at any time. I mean, I know it's a canon thing, and then that people.
Yeah, see, that's the thing you're going to go ahead and find with. We're going to see with the Whovian communities out there is, are they going to go ahead and allow the Doctor to die, or are they going to be like, no, hell no, we don't care. We want the Doctor to live on.
Yeah, it's the painting, the proverbial painting to the yourself in the corner. But they've kind of was aware of the situation, and they're like, okay, we're gonna, they got a plan to kind of get out of that corner.
Well, true. I mean, there was the option there with Davidson and Tennant. I mean, Davidson, has he's lost a bit of hair, and he's packed on a couple of pounds,
Mm-hmm.
And not like Colin Baker, but still, I mean, it's noticeable.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring somebody back, you want to go ahead and whip them into shape, or at least get them to as near back to to the way they looked during their time.
Can't do that with Tom Baker. I saw Tom Baker on this show called Monarch of the Glen. It's a Scottish show, and I was watching it for like 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Baker was on there, and I was like, "Whoa, wee!" He packed on a lot of weight. Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Colin Baker.
He's put on a lot of weight too.
Oh yeah. Taking a look back from his '80s days, and looking at him now, it's just like, what the hell happened? I mean, was it one too many Thanksgiving Day turkeys or something?
It's money, man. Money does that to you. You can eat good all the time, not have to exercise that much.
Oh, to hell with that, man. I mean, I want to be able to at least, look at least like semi how I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
Boy, am I feeling at that mark. I saw you.
What's his name? The lead writer, the current lead writer of Doctor Who.
Russell Davies?
No.
Or Steve Moffat?
That's Steve Moffat, yeah.
Yeah, that's Moffat.
Yeah.
And it's time.
I can see him. The reason why he's went and got us to be able to for the Doctor to recover Gallifrey is for his way out of the limitation of the regenerations.
No, that's very possible.
If there's a way that it'll probably involve Gallifrey to get out of this.
Yeah. Now here's the thing too. So that's changed, okay? So here comes the question. Here comes the big question. What happens with the Master?
Oh, the Master has done it, many a time.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
and he's used
he went back. Well, he went back in, back to Gallifrey into the time lock. Remember?
Mm-hmm. And there was many times when he was trying to blackmail the Time Lords into giving him more regenerations, and they were kind of balking about that. I mean,
Oh, true. Yeah. Okay. So enough of Doctor Who for now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and switch on over to our Gamers Corner. And this month's subject is going to be the nefarious Battlefield 4. Ho ho ho!
Yeah, Battlefield 4.
And for the time being, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this on over to Bruce, because Bruce got day one and has dealt with a lot of technical difficulties. So, Bruce, the floor is yours.
Okay, Battlefield 4. This game was so hyped up for the past however many damn months it's been. Battlefield is their main competition is Call of Duty, and it's almost turned into like a rapper's beef type of thing between Call of Duty and Battlefield. Those guys have been calling each other out. Yeah, those guys have been calling each other out.
I would have called it a pissing contest.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. It's just a pissing contest. Like I've read quotes from like executive producers from each of the genres where they're dissing the other game, and I'm like, really? Is this rap music? What's going on? And anyway, so they hate each other. Those guys hate each other. Anyway, so Battlefield 4 comes out, and they rushed it out to beat Call of Duty Ghosts' release by 1 week. Okay, now let me just preface this by saying that the team at DICE, the art pipeline, the game is quite possibly one of the most beautiful things I've ever played, hands down, including Crysis series, and Crysis is legendary for the graphic fidelity. But the programming, there is no way in hell that the programmers were finished. There's no way. There are too many problems with the software just in general.
No, I think wasn't the netcode the first thing to be addressed and noticed as far as flaws were concerned?
The netcode was probably one of the biggest, because multiplayer is is Battlefield's biggest draw. It always has been, right? It's, you're fighting on a giant battlefield with tanks and jets and all this stuff. So the netcode was a huge flaw, right? You would peek out around a corner, take a shot at somebody, get no hit markers, duck back around a corner, take a couple of steps behind the building, and then fall over dead. Because the guy had shot you, but it took so long for the netcode to register the kill, you were already behind something.
You mean like Hikoto no Ken? So it's like,
yeah.
You didn't hit me. Shut up, you're already dead.
And then you fall apart, basically. So, the problem is that the netcode wasn't the only problem. They obviously tested it on some high-end systems and probably tested it on their own rigs and didn't get a lot of console testing in. And when the game was released on the PC, it was crashing. And not just crashing, I mean to desktop, I mean crashing your machine. I mean causing a blue screen of death.
Right, I mean, didn't one person totally completely lose his machine over Battlefield 4?
He lost his machine. Now this was a comment that I wrote or that I read, and it was all hearsay, but he stated that the software caused so much corruption and memory leaks in his machine that when it crashed him. It was a hard crash, not a software crash, not a crash to the desktop. It was a hard crash.
Yeah.
So when he rebooted because of the memory leak or the software conflict that the Battlefield executable was causing, it would give him a blue screen of death, right? Now, typically a blue screen of death is, it can mean death, but a lot of times it could just mean you have a conflicting driver and it's causing memory crashes. Well, according to him, it crashed his machine so many times that it simply destroyed his machine. Now, whether that means it burnt out the logic board or it caused corruption in the software that was unrecoverable, or it
just went ahead and etched into the hard drive so bad that it's like, okay, dude, you've got yourself a great paperweight.
Yeah, it could be that. I mean, I don't know if he was using a solid-state drive or a moving part drive. I'm not sure. But anyway, he claims that because of the software issues caused by Battlefield 4, that it caused hardware failure. Now, that being said, it's not only experiencing PC problems, but the PS3 players, the Xbox 360 players, PS4 and Xbox One players are all experiencing crashes. Now, essentially what that means is when you play the game, you can tell that the art team did an amazing job, the writers did a great job, the audio people did an amazing job. The art pipeline was solid and almost flawless. The technical pipeline, because of time constraints and they just wanted to beat Call of Duty even by a week, that cost the programmers some time. So when the game came out, it is literally crashing on every platform.
It's an alpha.
Still crashing to this day. Yeah, you're basically paying for, you paid $70 for an alpha build.
Or 110 in some cases.
110, depending on what you bought.
Yeah, exactly.
If you bought the digital version and then you bought premium, you paid $110 because it's $50 a shot plus taxes, and you're easily paying $110. So anyway, there are problems with certain configurations. There are graphic driver issues. The new Frostbite 3 engine is what they used for the game. I'm not sure how solidly tested that was with multiple graphics cards, but I do know for a fact that NVIDIA and AMD both released drivers that were specific to problems addressed to Battlefield 4. And when the game, even when the most recent patch came out that claims to have fixed some of the issues, some people are claiming it worked, but that's like 1% of them. Most people are saying
caused more problems.
It's worse.
Yeah.
There's one guy who said, I used to crash every 1 to 2 hours, and now I crash every 5 minutes. So anyway, fast forwarding to me dealing with this issue, I'm not just kind of a person who sits by and waits for them to come up with a solution. I try to see what is specific to my system that is causing a problem. So I update drivers, I reinstall DirectX, things like that. At least for me, and if anybody's watching this who plays Battlefield 4, what I found on my system was that I cannot run it in full screen mode. There's a problem with the graphic driver where if you put it in full screen mode, it doesn't like to make the adjustment, or it may be a gamma issue. I know when you go to full screen mode on some programs, the gamma completely changes. Anyway, if you run it in windowed mode, maximized, it runs great. If you try to change to anything other than the native resolution of your monitor, it causes problems. I have a 1080p monitor, and when I run in 1080, the game runs great. So the game actually runs better on my system at 1080p at all high settings than it does at 720 at all low settings. So, you know,
yeah, I call that a translation problem.
Yeah. So theoretically, on any game, if you lower the resolution of your monitor and you lower the graphic settings, that the GPU doesn't have to work as hard. It can send some of its workload over to the CPU and share the workload. Now, again, therein lies a problem. If they didn't write it into the executable for the load to be shared and for it to all be optimized for the single GPU or for a GPU, then of course it's going to run better if it's not sharing the load. You know what I mean? So anyway, point being that Battlefield 4 is pretty much the closest you could come to an epic fail for a AAA video game. Even to this date, I'm on the battle log now, looking at some of the posts, and people are still claiming that it crashes consistently. Now, what I did to my system wasn't necessarily a fix, simply a workaround. I should be able to play in full screen mode. I should not have to play the game in windowed mode. That shouldn't be a requirement for the game to function. Therefore, the game is flawed. It is obviously flawed. I simply, however, have found a workaround to make it work correctly. But the game, it's quite possibly one of the biggest failures for a massive company like EA and DICE to release a game like that with that big of a fan base, and for to completely fail their fan base like that is absolutely inexcusable.
Well, it's not their first time either. Then again, look at it, it's EA.
Yeah, and I believe that the games industry is slowly becoming what the music industry used to be. You know, publishing companies like EA are gobbling up smaller developers. Now, DICE isn't a small developer, but they're gobbling up developers and stamping their logo on it like a record label would do. They would take an artist and stick their stamp on it and make them rush the product out so they could make money. And that's what the games industry, or quickly actually, what the games industry is turning into. You have developers like BioWare who release Mass Effect, and then all of a sudden the second game comes out and there's a big fat EA stamp on it because EA saw that how much money that it was making. And
they wanted their slice of the pie, just like Microsoft would.
Yeah, absolutely. Microsoft did the same thing with Bungie. When Halo came out, that wasn't a Microsoft. As far as I know, that was not a Microsoft game. But
initially, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't remember it being, maybe before the first release, but initially Bungie was not a Microsoft company. But all of a sudden, you know, they smell money and blood in the water, and they see how fans flock to a good product, and then they start stamping that big fat logo across there, and they get a big.
It's all about the Shark Tank.
Absolutely, it's all about the money. It's all about the money, and so my point is that they do a fan such a service by creating an intellectual property that they love so much and that fans will just continuously go out and buy, and then they turn around and do a fans a disservice by rushing their product out. Do you know what I mean? So you have games like Battlefield 4 that have the Battlefield series has a huge following. But now that EA's been Battlefield for a while, and they've put out decent games. But now it was a huge rush because Call of Duty was coming out, their nemesis, their arch enemy. They rushed the product, and now the public, the fan base is paying the price, literally paying the price, and being research and development for them at the same time. So, and
Very
I think
true.
It's happening all over the games industry. Products are getting rushed out, and it's just kind of the same thing. As long as something's making money, they try to make it last as long as they can, and capitalize on merchandising, and that's how, that's the entertainment business. But Battlefield 4 itself is a perfect, is the prime example of what it takes to make a game, to make a really great game fail. You know what I mean? Now I'm sure it sold a lot of copies, and I'm sure people like me held out, for a long time, and I'm sure people will still hold out. I'm a true Battlefield fan. I can't play Call of Duty; it's too monotonous. But you spend all this money, getting into the game, and for me, it's not a big deal to wait any longer. But some people, they're not waiting for the patch. They're like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to Call of Duty. I know a lot of people who have switched over to playing Call of Duty because the customer support from EA is so terrible. It's been 30 days since release, and close to 30 days since release, and there's only been one patch. They've patched the servers a lot because the servers for multiplayer were crashing, but the single-player campaign crashes as well, and there's only been one client patch, and it failed miserably. So it's going to be a long process for Battlefield 4 to be okay. And that is my rant about Battlefield 4.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it looks like the only ghost that EA and Battlefield 4 will be seeing is the ghost of the presidents.
Yeah, it'd be ghosts of presidents. That's it. There's going to be an absence of money for them, because I know people that, I know Origin's already been inundated with requests for refunds. Basically, you put out a game that doesn't function. It simply just doesn't work.
Well, like you and I discussed earlier. This was basically a big, huge, fat alpha.
Yeah.
And it was a flop alpha.
And the funny thing is, when they put out the beta came out, the second half of October, when the beta, or the first half of October when the beta was out, the beta actually functioned better than the full version.
See, and that's the thing. Maybe they should have stayed with the beta. There should have been a lot of extra beta time involved on this.
Yeah. Yeah, there should have been a lot of everything involved in the development, especially a game of that scope.
Yeah, how long was the beta trials anyway?
14 days.
14 days.
Yeah, it should have been like 3 months.
Yeah, or at least I'd say at the very least 6 months. With the graphics engine that they're dealing with and everything, and the environments that they're building and such, that's all well and good. But you have to deal with the netcode. You have to make sure that it's decent enough, that you're going to have the right ping time, the right frames per second, or you're going to have a great landscape. That's pretty much it. Beautiful things, and yet I pull a trigger,
and
I'm already dead. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically a landscape you can look at. That's it. And and you're right. Frostbite 3 is an unproven engine. You're basically going into battle with an unproven rifle, So, now I took part in the Battlefield 3 technical alpha. The technical alpha is an alpha that they put out usually to staff members and family to basically to test out how the game is initially playing. Now I took part in Battlefield 3 from technical alpha all the way up through final.
Right, and through all the stress tests and such, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
They tested that game pretty thoroughly. Now, this is Frostbite 3. It's an engine that they really haven't put any games out on. And don't get me wrong, it's an absolutely incredible engine.
I've seen the tech demos for it. It's beautiful. I mean, you could create a city there, and, within it, and it works. I mean, there's like hardly any lag or anything involved in it.
It's beautiful. I mean, you could theoretically, and there's a lot of independent, like guerrilla filmmakers talking about switching over to using next-gen game engines because they're so powerful now to make CG films, because you can make all your changes in real time without having to render. And so the point is that Frostbite's a new technology, and I think that what I think they thought was, if we test it basically the same way we tested Battlefield 3, we should be fine, because look how well Battlefield 3 did. Well, what most people don't remember is Battlefield 3 had a good chunk of problems at the beginning too. Not like this. Right. But that engine was tried and true already. It was Frostbite 2.
Right.
And you're talking about a brand new engine. They had no idea what was going to happen. No clue. It all worked on their rigs. I'm sure it all worked on their rigs, and they all have super high-end rigs. I have a pretty high-end rig, and it's still... My computer was like, what do you want me to do with this?
Right.
Like, it's, the computer only knows instructions. If you don't give it the correct instructions, it doesn't know what to do.
Right. One of the colleges over here where I'm at has only been using the Frostbite engine and has only barely scraped out what it can and what the engine can really do. I mean, we've maybe explored maybe like 23. Maybe 25% of what it's capable of, and they're still testing the dynamics out on it and such, and as far as the physics, and they're coming out with with these lifelike models and such.
Yeah, it would definitely have to be Frostbite 2, because I don't know how they would get access to the engine.
I don't know.
I don't think that they would have access to 3. They may have. Well,
it's an educational institution. That's why.
Right.
And it's one of the state colleges.
Right.
So they may have some type of an agreement with them. So.
Most engines are the same these days too. I mean, I think UDK set the standard for a lot of things. So a lot of engines you open up are looking real similar.
Right. It's all about how things are handled and coded.
Yeah, that's one reason why I kind of avoid PC gaming, is just when they involved a lot of the hardware.
Well, it's not so much a bit of hardware dependency. I mean, you could go ahead and create a game like Battlefield 4, and still have like like a 1 gig AGP, not even a PCIe. You could use a 1, maybe 2 gig AGP and still be able to go ahead and fly around like you're Han, a PCI SLI type environment.
And run it on low, pretty low settings using like OpenGL, and it's all you have to do. It's like anything else. All you have to do, the problem with what Max is saying, I think, is that PCs are a moving target, and that everybody has a different format. But there's only so many components that you can have in a PC. There's GPU, there's memory, there's CPU. I mean, all you have to do is make it compatible across X number of stuff. Now they have an easier time with console because it's frozen in time. It's that hardware configuration, and that's all they have to worry about, and that's it. Now it's usually less powerful, and still, even the next gen, this new generation of PS4 and Xbox One, those machines are still less powerful than even medium level PCs.
True. True.
So I mean, I sympathize with them trying to deal with, hardware problems and software conflicts with different hardware configurations for PC users. I get that. I understand that. But there is no excuse for the console versions to be crashing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are console
that's pretty
versions.
sad.
Yeah, like I said, because it's static, they should have at least them working properly.
Yeah, you should at least be able to play the console version.
And another thing about the PC versions that I have issue with is, well, you got software where the person on there has more control over and possibly hack the software itself and
oh yeah,
add cheats and whatnot.
Yeah.
But which you wouldn't have with a console in most cases.
Yeah, there's occasional console hackers, and those guys really go out of their way to connect their console to their PC and use tunneling programs and do all this stuff to hack the actual console version of the match. You know what? Hats off to that guy. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of frickin' work to win a match. Yeah, you go, boy. Do it. On PC, you're absolutely right. You're on a PC. It's simpler. It's simple to hack the software. Well, not simple, but for a hacker, it's easy to hack the software and use program. I mean, there's programs for cheaters like aimbot. I mean, aimbot is designed to be. It's a cheating program. It's simply just as long as someone's in your field of view, you fire your gun in any direction, and it kills them. So, there's always going to be cheaters, but yeah, I think on PC it's definitely more prevalent.
Yeah.
It's
Indeed.
definitely more prevalent.
Well, I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up for this month's podcast, guys. We are going to not be broadcasting for Thanksgiving. We will be returning back in December. So from us here over at the Cybernauts, we're wishing you a happy holidays. Definitely a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you in December before the end of the year.
See ya!
Bye.